Hey everyone, we're back. Season 2, Episode 5 of the Sports Biz Report. Mike Proska here hosting. Today I'm joined by a couple of my fellow colleagues, Kevin Rossi, Kevin Merry as usual. Also have the pleasure, Greg Monforti will be giving his 2 cents. And Lindert Skodra with his expert analysis of the 2014 NBA draft class, which we will talk about in a little bit. But first of all, I want to talk about the hometown Philadelphia 76ers, who are off to a 4-3 start, 5-4 start. They just beat the Rockets last night. And with new GM Sam Hinkie, new coach Brett Brown, they're really basing their whole style of play on analytics and new technology. And my question is this the reason why they're winning games? Essentially beating teams who are way better than them on paper. First go to Kevin Merry for his thoughts.
Well, I think this definitely has something to do with it. I don't think it's the main reason, because I think a lot of it is just they're young, they're playing kind of recklessly, and it's just worked out for them in the beginning of the year, particularly with their opening night win over the Heat. But I think the whole idea of this like analytics movement is not a short-term goal. So it's not about going 5-4. It's about winning on average over the course of X number of games. Because if you look at, based on the Moneyball idea, it's not about a home run. It's about your average over the course of your career. That's really important. So I think this is definitely something to analyze over the course of the full season.
So in essence, would an on-base percentage in baseball be the equivalent of a plus-minus status for the NBA?
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair to say.
Yeah, I think keeping on the Moneyball kind of metaphor, you kind of mentioned it, but, that stuff works on the law of averages. Billy Beane said in Moneyball, my stuff doesn't work in the playoffs because the playoffs are a crapshoot and it's a shortened, series. It's been 9 games. Everybody needs to calm down. If this is what gets people going out to games, then that's fantastic. But
it is Philadelphia.
It's been 9 games. There's a lot more to go. And, everybody needs to calm themselves. They're young players playing with house money. Like, they can do whatever they want. They can't do wrong. So
I agree 100% with what Kevin just said. It's 9 games in. They're young players. They're going to try to play as hard as they can at the beginning of the season. I'd like to see maybe halfway through the season if we're still around 500. But I think we'll regress back to where we're supposed to be and finish probably with 20, 25 wins.
I think a lot of the credit also has to go to Brett Brown. I feel like a lot of the wins are coming from his system and the way he organizes the plays or just kind of the roles that each player has on the team. Coming from San Antonio, that's a big thing, and I'm sure he's stressed that to his players. And it's obviously worked out so far.
Going off of that, it seems to me from watching the games that Brett Brown is really sticking true to his lineup adjustments no matter what is happening in the game. So he'll take Carter Williams out at the same point of every game and put him back in. Is he doing that because of what the technology is telling him about the analytics? I know they started using Catapult Sports innovations during their practices, and it sort of tells them how their players are reacting physically throughout each drill. Does that have a play in it, or is it really?
I definitely think it's something. I definitely think that's something to look at, and I think looking at the fact that he came from San Antonio is really interesting because, yes, I mean obviously Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan, they have some big name people there, but none of them really play like a star athlete. So if you look at the 76ers right now, sure, they have Michael Carter Williams and Nerlens Noel if he ever plays. Not saying that's a bad thing, but whenever he does come back, they're going to have some young gun stars, but they currently are playing a team of relatively misfits. So I think it's interesting to compare the teams across, and I think analytics has to play a big role in that because of the fact that there is no star to lead.
Yeah, definitely something to look forward and keep your eye on throughout the NBA season. I mean, the Spurs, the Pacers, the Heat, they all use this stuff, and they're all at the top of the league. So interesting to see what will happen.
If I can cut in, I feel like it's something that he's done before with Tony Parker. I know in the past, I don't know how much of a say he had in it, but they would take Parker out at certain moments. I know the Suns used to do it with Steve Nash at the end of the first quarter back when he was playing with the Phoenix. So I'm sure that analytics does have a part to it, but I think it's something that the players get used to. So I don't know how much of a part that has to it.
Yeah, that's another good point. However, moving on from analytics, we're going to stick with basketball, and the NCAA college season just kicked off the other night. And really, the big talk is the draft class for next year. Will it be the best draft class ever? People are saying it's going to be better than LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, that class. With these, these are young kids. They're freshmen, and obviously
the hype machine is rolling. The hype machine is just...
The hype machine is rolling. Obviously, they have the talent. Is there anything they can do really off the court to make themselves stand out more?
To make themselves worth a pick, the number one
the
pick
number one
over
pick.
Another guy?
Mm-hmm.
Off the court, stay out of trouble. That's really, all you need to show, I think, to get drafted number one is show that you're not a terrible person. Once he gets into the NBA, or he as in, the three-headed monster. Yeah. Once they get into the NBA, obviously you would love to see them take that star status and take that momentum that they have going in and capitalize on that. Not even, not only monetarily, but, out in the community. And you would really hope that they can. But, going in, I don't think a team's going to be like, oh, well, Andrew Wiggins, he volunteers his time at a senior center, so we're going to pick him number one over another guy. So, I don't think really the thinking goes like that, unfortunately.
I'm not sure Wiggins could do much that would make him not be the number one pick. Although I personally think Jabari Parker is a better prospect, Wiggins has too much of a future, and he has the, raw talent. Not that Parker doesn't have any, but I feel like
he's not as developed.
Right. And, I know Adidas already has a $100 million deal lined up with him once he does graduate, which is ridiculous as a freshman in college.
Going off of that, I think if anybody saw the interview before the Kentucky game, it may have been during the Kentucky game, with Andrew Wiggins. And he was they just aired it during the Kentucky game because they were talking about how he chose to not go to Kentucky. And he was asked what his biggest goal of the year was. And he said, I would love to grow and become better as a player, leading into eventually being the best pick the first pick in the NBA draft. And that's something that I am that I've been concerned about since this Andrew Wiggins talk began. The idea of this interview was conducted before the man played a game in college. So the fact that this was his goal is really scary to me. So I think he needs to maybe relax on the interview ego a little bit to, just calm himself down. Because that's not something that you really saw in Anthony Davis at the beginning of the year last year.
Going off that,
Anthony Bennett.
Well,
has he scored yet?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
He did score.
Irrelevant.
Going off that, I don't know if it was the same interview or not, but he said something along the lines where he wants to enjoy his 1 year at the school, and I don't like that he said that either. I think that just goes with the same thing that you said. He's in there to be the number one pick, just to be there for the 1 year, show he can play at the college level, and then go make his money.
And a point about Anthony Davis never really acting that way. As much as John Calipari's tactics might be questioned, he knows how to handle these kids off and on the court to get them ready for the NBA, especially with dealing with the media. I think that's an interesting concept between Wiggins and Julius Randle as well.
At the same time, I honestly feel like I can't blame Wiggins for that. We are talking about the most hyped athlete since LeBron James, and if the rule, which he had to play 1 year, wasn't made, he wouldn't be going to college.
Well, let's not even get into that. That's a whole other
That would
conversation.
change every one of these players even being in college right now.
Right.
But I mean, off that, he is just playing by the rules, and if you don't like what he says, then is it a problem with what he's saying, or is it a problem with the rule? I think that's what you have to look at. A little confidence never hurt anybody. Is it cocky? That's up for you to decide. But I mean, when everybody in the media is talking about you being the next LeBron James, quote unquote, it's hard to not be cocky about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's interesting to see what will happen. And then again, throughout the season, there's always a name that's going to pop up who's having a great year, and then everything just goes to hell for Wiggins. And
from a sports biz standpoint, though, with these three, I'm wondering, somebody mentioned Adidas having a potential deal in place once he gets out of college, which I'm sure Mark Emmert is thrilled about hearing that. But, I'm wondering if Adidas or, any other apparel company would think about signing all three and marketing them together, as the three. I mean, on a smaller scale, you had a lot of the hype around the WNBA season was over the big, top three picks. And, yeah, I think that's an interesting way to approach it. We've seen, obviously, a group being marketed together before in, the Heat, and a lot of teams now are going with the whole 1-2 punch instead of just the straight star player. Maybe marketing can hit on that trend as well.
Question, do you think Jabari Parker would do that? Because I know personally, and even from watching the game, you can tell that there's a little like rivalry, I think I'm better than him kind of thing. Do you think it would be, or would he do that, or do you think it would be wise of him to do that instead of going with someone like Nike? Or
I think either way, because it, obviously nobody knows.
Right.
But you think about it, right now, Nike has Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy. The beginning commercials, when they first started making commercials, was kind of like Tiger versus Rory, like old guard versus new guard. And, that could play a part into it. Nike and Adidas both have their respective, deep lists of clients and endorsers. So, I think they could play it a bunch of different ways. Even if he signed with Nike and Wiggins was with Adidas, I can see some competing, condescending kind of ad campaigns going on there, which, from a sports biz standpoint is very fun, finally.
They could also do, who's the Dwayne Wade and
Leonard?
And who?
The Gatorade commercial?
Yeah.
Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant, when they do that kind of thing, like, they
It's
could
a brilliant
maybe
commercial.
I really like that commercial too. I thought it was a great idea. And going off what you said, if they sign all three of them, they could do something like that as soon as they come out of college with the teams that they're on.
It's not a good move for Jabari Parker, in my opinion, if he were to sign along the same line as Andrew Wiggins. Not only monetarily, he's going to get the most amount of money from whoever doesn't sign Andrew Wiggins, because they're going to have their pockets stuffed still. And obviously there's no... and I can't remember if it was Nike or Adidas who made this statement, but somebody said, you can't put a value on the name of Andrew Wiggins. And that is like a wild thing to say about somebody who had never played a college game.
It's all the hype machine.
It's the hype machine,
really
man. It's rolling. But yeah, it's not. It's not. I don't think it would be a good move for Jabari Parker to sign along the same line as Wiggins.
I'm interested to see the role Reebok plays, just because they're starting to grow. I mean, Isaiah Thomas, Nerlens Noel, they're starting to get their name out there. So
on the bench.
Yeah.
Well,
whether it be
you got to make a splash at some point.
Not specifically to the three-headed monster, but even somebody anywhere in the first round, whether it be maybe a guy like Marcus Smart, or even a role player along the lines that gets drafted in the first round, could be another step into trying to regain their exposure.
Because nobody's going to break the Nike mold. It's
Right.
just not doable. So you need to find your own market. segment to focus on.
Yeah.
I agree with you that Reebok needs to do it probably in this draft, especially with the high-profile names around it.
Yeah, if they could pull off getting one of the top 3 guys, the two that are left, I think that would put them back in, obviously not as high as Nike, like you said, but put them back into being one of the top people in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
Even a top 10 pick, because this class is so deep. But yeah, it's crazy. As you've heard here, the hype train is rolling, so you better hop on board if you haven't already.
Toot toot.
That wraps it up for the Sports Biz Report. Thanks for listening.